Welcome to the Drum Solos course. In this introductory video, I want to think about what our goal is with this course because I'm going to keep adding chapters to this course over time. And these, as you know, on the website, we do drum solo contests, we do end of course challenges. There are ample opportunities to play drum solos and use these tools. So it's really important to think about what we're trying to do when we're playing drum solos because most people, their relationship with their drum soloing is one where they're not very happy and they feel like they're never quite hitting the mark. It never feels as good as it does in the practice room. And I think part of what sets us up to fail in this way is that we don't actually know exactly what we are aiming at. What is a good drum solo? What would it feel like to play a good drum solo? And that's what I want to try to define a little bit for us in this first lesson. And I'm going to propose something that's a little bit different than you might usually hear. And I hope it ends up being encouraging because it's going to be an achievable goal for drummers of all levels. Right? So the goal cannot be incredible world-class drumming that is just so advanced and impressive that it, blows our minds and inspires awe. Because we're at a variety of levels, really good music can be made with simple tools. Right? You probably reflect on even the music you listen to that's regular music, not drum solos. It doesn't have to be complicated to be good. Oftentimes, making it more complicated, actually, it loses some of the emotional draw and emotional contour, the push and pull, right? The effectiveness. So complexity cannot be the goal. But where your further accumulating of vocabulary comes into play here is that one thing we're going to depend on is having options. Right? So in almost all of the courses on this website, we work on building variety, like vocabulary, with a subset of vocabulary. Right? So this means having options. So if it's a certain type of flow setting, if it's a triplet fill setting, if it's a groove setting, if you're thinking about ghost notes, kick drum freedom, whatever it might be, the goal is to develop options and control with the options so that we have sort of pieces to work with so that we can build something interesting. Obviously, if you can only play a few patterns, you're going to have to do a lot of very creative work to make it engaging. So on the rest of the website, we build options, we build vocabulary, but that in itself doesn't give you good music. If I can play a bunch of amazing patterns, it doesn't mean I can necessarily structure them in a way that draws you along, creates tension and release, creates effective music, essentially. So this is the course where we're not going to talk about vocabulary at all. And I'm hoping that virtually everything we talk about in this is going to be applicable across the board, regardless of what the specific vocabulary you're using is. So whether you're, right, if I succeed in this course, it won't matter if you're a pop punk drummer or a metal drummer or a jazz drummer or a Latin jazz drummer or whatever. The technique should be applicable, right? These are general approaches and ways to create an impact and engaging music, regardless of the vocabulary that you're using. So I want to propose that our goal is this, to create moments. What do I mean by moments? You know these, right? You've had these, right? Listening to a song at a concert, a moment when you're deeply engaged with music, right? It's not background music, you're deeply engaged. And you get so sucked into the music, right? The music is so effective for a moment. It's a transition, it's a climax, it's something that feels like you are totally leaving. You forget about, right, your body, you forget about what's around you. You sort of just like cross this threshold and like become the music. And it's deeply impactful and it feels like it touches something deep in your soul, right? There's something subconscious that's happening. And you can, of course, never explain what happened, why it happened, right? And it might be different for other people. The people around you might not have felt that same moment, but a lot of times it will be a shared thing. So you know these types of impactful moments. And what I want to propose is that our goal playing drum solos is to create these magical moments. What that means is that not only the moment is important, but everything surrounding it is of equal importance because that is what the moment depends on. Everything that leads up to that moment is what is building the tension or is drawing you in or setting up the surprise that's so impactful or whatever it might be. Our goal in drums, in playing a drum solo, let's say, is to create these moments that are, the reason I want them to be at the forefront of our mind is because this is the magic. This is the magic of music, right? When you have absolutely no chance of explaining why you were so deeply moved by something or why you forgot yourself and just were carried away by the music, even for an instant, these are completely ineffable experiences that we're chasing all the time. In a sense, I think that's what we're looking for when we're listening to music all the time. So our goal is to create these moments, right? And those moments are going to be within the drum solo, a broader experience that we're creating for people. And the other word I want to have us ringing in our ears all the time is coherence. So when you listen to a song, right, and there are certain songs that even though I know them, I've listened to them 1,000 times, the moment in the song still gets me, right? It still gives me goosebumps. It still feels like it's talking about a truth of the human condition that I just can't stop feeling, right? But within the song, what makes it make sense is this feeling of coherence. And we're going to talk and explore what that means further, obviously, as we get into specific techniques within this. But we have an incredible task, and it's an exciting one. This is where I get very excited. So I want to differentiate what we're doing with drum solos from storytelling. And oftentimes, language and music, language is used sort of metaphorically with music, and oftentimes storytelling is used metaphorically with playing a solo or writing a song. There's useful overlap here, and it's a useful idea to have in mind, but I don't want to use it so much here. And the reason is that what I'm interested in is the difference between language and drumming, the difference between storytelling and a solo, let's say. And I think the difference is what makes music so magical and interesting and ineffable. So with language, right, people are saying like, music is the universal language. Drumming, it's a language. I've heard a lot of people say this kind of thing, but it's not. Technically speaking, right, language is one of the defining factors of language is that it's full of these symbols that are arbitrary. A word is nothing except for what it refers to. So when you're reading a story, for example, every word, basically, almost every word, is referring to something or an idea or a construct that we've agreed means something external to itself. The lines on the page mean nothing. When you're playing the drums, let's say, nothing that you're playing on the drums points to anything in the world except for the music itself. If you think about a transcription, the drumming doesn't point to the transcription. Transcription points to the drumming. Right? The music is the natural phenomena, and the notation or the word points to that thing. The reason this is so cool is because what that means is that music is never operating at the logical, rational level, right? It's not like the story can't end logically, which is why I want to use the word coherence instead of like storytelling. So when you compare now storytelling to the experience and the moments that you're going to create on the drums, storytelling, because it uses language for the most part, imagery, it comes to a conclusion, it comes full circle logically and rationally. Right? So even if the emotional arc of the story is a disaster, it makes no sense, there still can be a logical conclusion. He finds his way home. She finds true love. They win the war, right? There's a logical conclusion that makes it a story. With drumming, you can't use words. You're not referencing anything literal in the world. You just have music, which is a purely experiential thing. So your story can't end logically and rationally. So we have an incredible task, and it's so amazing when we can accomplish it. And it's to create coherence, that this is one coherent experience, full of moments, full of tension and release, full of everything a story has, but with no literal content, like no pointing at anything in the world, no logical coherence, if you will, narrative coherence. And I feel like people's knee-jerk reaction to what I'm saying is that I'm denigrating music, but I am doing the opposite in my mind. I'm elevating it. This is operating purely at the subconscious level. Right? The coherence of your story, your coherence of the experience you create in a drum solo is going to be felt only intuitively, only subconsciously, and you will never be able to really explain why it happened. As opposed to a movie, a book, a story. Even if you forget how it felt, you can just explain how the story ended in logical terms. This is incredible. So the reason music has this magic about it is that it starts abstract. It never points to anything besides itself, and we don't have language to really reduce it to anything beyond what it is. And therefore, the fact that we can create an idea that feels coherent, which is basically like a subconscious intuitive thing that you will communicate to someone else who will receive it subconsciously and intuitively, never really entering the plane of what we do with language, what we do with storytelling, never entering the plane of logical connections. That's very special, and that's very rare, and there are very few places, very few settings in life where that type of intuitive subconscious connection is the whole point. And that's what makes music so magical. So this is what we're aiming at, right? So we are trying to create moments where someone loses themselves, even if just for a moment, and feels and hears what you are trying to deliver with no literal external words and storytelling necessary. That's incredible. That's what we're trying to do. Create moments within a coherent experience that is deeply engaging for the listener. That's our goal with drum solos. This may sound esoteric, but it's not something that's far off. It's not something that's reserved for advanced drummers. Everyone has a musical intuition because everyone is listening to music. Everyone is consuming art all the time, which is feeding your intuition. So regardless of how much or how little vocabulary you have accumulated, you do have an intuition for delivering an engaging experience because you know what it would feel like to receive one. That's our goal. We're going to learn general and then specific techniques that help us do that. And I'm really excited to jump into this course. I'll see you in the next lesson.